Hi everyone! I have developed here a graphic organizer to display the essential components of reading comprehension. Now, the idea behind this graphic organizer is pretty much to use symbols to summarize and represent each component. So, using symbols and pictures rather than just words to represent each component is far more effective for children. Children tend to actually stop and look at these compelling visuals. Their attention is more readily attracted to a picture rather than simply a just group of words. And we've all heard the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Am I right? So I've designed this graphic organizer aiming at primary school children and have designed it to intrigue the 21st century learner. So in my graphic design, I have chosen to display each component using a 21st century symbol that I'm sure you're all familiar with. Now, these are all called emojis. So emojis are actually little symbols that are on an iPhone or a Samsung, Facebook, Instagram, all these different things. We've all seen them. Now, even children in primary schools are very familiar with these as well. They all use them as well, actually, on their parents' tablets or they even have phones if you're in year 5 or year 6. Anyways, they all know it. Now, I've actually designed a few different graphic organizers, and I've drawn up a few and given them to my kids. Now, they weren't really interested. I don't know, they weren't really intrigued. It wasn't something that they could really relate to or make connections with. But as soon as I showed them these emojis, they were like, oh, cool, emojis. And you know what? I threw in an iPad. So it's all displayed on an iPad. And I threw it in and their eyes straight away went to it. They just completely made connections to it, could relate to it. And it's something that they actually recognized before. Now, I just thought it was a really good idea. It's something that everyone's familiar with, and that's why I've used it. All right, so there are, of course, the 5 components of reading comprehension, but I've added an extra 2 that I find is very important. So I've added language and I've added spelling. Now, I find these 2 are very, very important factors as well. Since I'm aiming it at primary school students, I'm aiming it from kindergarten all the way to year 6. Because they are visuals and it suits all types of learners in primary school. So, language. So, long before children actually learn how to read, they need to develop skills needed to understand how language works. So, rapid growth occurs in the language centers of the brain during early childhood years. So, usually before the age of 8, children form the foundation for language and literacy development by discovering that speech has patterns and symbols have meanings. So as a result of this, successful early language development is actually a vital part of later achievements in comprehension. So therefore, I've chosen language as the first domain for understanding comprehension. So the symbols I have used are the emojis of 2 combined emojis, actually. So I've used a blue little spoken emoji and a brain. Now, the reason why I've used them together is because comprehension relies on the ability to correctly process words, phrases, meaning, sentence, grammar, and text structure. And so it's all about the process between all those linking up to the brain. And if you have difficulties in any of this, it's hard to comprehend, which is why I've used those 2 together as a symbol to represent language. So next I have chosen to use to display phonemic awareness. Now, I have linked all of these up with arrows to pretty much show the connection between each of them and how they go and where they start and where they end up and how they all relate to comprehension. I've put comprehension right in the middle because all of it surrounding is all the factors in order to achieve the ultimate goal, which is comprehension. All right, so phonemic awareness. So with phonemic awareness, I have chosen to use the symbol or the emoji of the phone. mainly because it's easy to remember. It's in the word phonemic awareness, and I find the phone is actually very relatable to what phonemic awareness is. So phonemic awareness is actually the smallest units making up spoken language. So it pretty much refers to the student's ability to actually focus on and manipulate these phonemes in spoken syllables and words. So it's all about the talking, it's about the speaking. That's why I have chosen the phone, and that's why I've actually chosen an old-fashioned phone and not an iPhone emoji, because an iPhone you can do more than just speak on it. So you might confuse them. I've actually chosen this phone specifically because all you do is speak through it. So the next one I have chosen is phonics. I've chosen it after phonemic awareness. So phonics is actually the relationship between the letters and the individual sounds in spoken language. So as you can see here, I've used an emoji of someone singing, and I've used letters. I've used PH specifically for phonics, and because it makes a F sound. I find that this is a great representation of phonics in the form of a symbol. So the next one I have chosen in my graphic organizer is fluency. So that comes after phonics. So fluency means that you are able to read orally with appropriate speed, accuracy, and proper expression. So fluency is actually the ability to read as well as speak and to make sense of the text without having to stop and decode each word. So that's why I have actually used the emojis of a surfer and a wave. Now, when you're surfing, you don't stop. You are so smooth in that wave. You are reading so smoothly. You are surfing so smoothly under that wave. Now, I just find that something pretty relatable when it comes to fluency. It's like you're surfing underneath the wave so smooth. You don't stop. Therefore, reading fluency has a positive impact on word recognition and comprehension. Now, next is vocabulary. Now, vocabulary is actually an essential part of comprehension. So the larger the reader's vocabulary, the easier it is to make sense of the text. Am I right? So the aim is to expand our vocabulary. And how do we expand that? By becoming investigators and looking for new words, which is why I have chosen this emoji to represent vocabulary. Now, lastly, I have included spelling. Now, spelling is a vital component of comprehension because with good spelling, you can avoid confusion. And poor spelling distracts the reader and they can lose focus when they're trying to read. So I find that it's actually very hard to read a test for comprehension when it's full of spelling errors, and I'm sure other students struggle with that as well. And I've used the emojis of a bee because people relate bees to spelling bee. I don't know, just like they see a bee and they see spelling. And I have actually chosen a keyboard because 21st century learners spell using keyboards as well as writing. And you'll see that in the future, most of our spelling will be on a keyboard. Now, lastly, right in the middle is comprehension. That is the aim of our reading, comprehending what we are reading. Now, I have used a sun because it represents the light at the end of the tunnel and it is above everything, right at the top. Now, an evidence-based strategy I have chosen that supports comprehension is prior knowledge. Now, allowing students to first tap into their prior knowledge before reading is at the core of learning and comprehending. A quote from Harvey and Gudis is, "Asking kids to read without using background knowledge is like asking people to breathe without using oxygen." Background knowledge is essential for comprehending. Now, a teaching strategy I can suggest is during our daily 5 rotations that we all do here at the school, in your guided reading session with your students, to first tap into their prior knowledge and ask them to write down something, maybe on a sticky note, that they already know or an experience they have already had that relates to the book they're about to read. Now, this allows them to make connections to their real life. So while they're reading the book, they'll be like, oh, I recognize this, or I've done something very similar to this, and it allows them to comprehend exactly what they are reading. And that is the end. That is my graphic organizer. Thank you for listening.